Reuters.com, U.S. manufacturing contracts for sixth straight month amid tariff drag. No, that's not men in drag. Sorry, all you poor little fascists out there. Don't want to attack people in drag. Anyway, Lucia Mutakani is the author of this story. U.S. manufacturing contracted for a sixth straight month in August. Not a coincidence, right? As factories dealt with the fallout from Diaper Donnie's import tariffs, with some manufacturers describing the current business environment as much worse than the Great Recession. Great Recession was George W. Bush's doing. He brought us into that in 2008. So we could have an election and say, boy, that Republican economics really sucks. But then we went back to it for some damn reason. It never works. It never works. That's never worked in the history of anything. Supply side doesn't work. Trickle down doesn't work. Just doesn't. Give rich people all the money and they'll give some back. Oh, okay. Not a plan. The Institute of Supply Management, ISCM, survey on Tuesday also showed some manufacturers complaining that the sweeping import duties were making it difficult to manufacture goods in the United States. Well, we make stuff, but everything we want to buy is made in another country. Hey, we're going to make it in the U.S. We don't make it in the U.S. That's the problem. There's no money to make it in the U.S., right? We have to pay our workers at least $7.50 an hour. Other countries don't have to. That's why they're not made in the U.S. You know, here's the thing with oligarchs. They create a problem and act like we created it. They created the fucking problem, manufacturing being gone. Oh, it was unions. Bullshit. You destroyed the unions. You moved south to destroy the unions. That wasn't enough. You had to move to another country. So stop blaming the unions. Anyway, Diaper Donnie has defended his idiotic protectionist trade policy, which has raised the nation's average tariff rate to the highest in a century, as necessary to revive long declining U.S. industrial base. How is that going to work? Let's see. We'll destroy manufacturing in America. That'll bring it back. Wow. That was reinforced by government data showing spending on construction of factories dropped in July and was down 6.7 from a year. What was reinforced? Nothing was reinforced. What are you talking about? Nothing was reinforced. What a weird article. That was it says, according to them, something was reinforced by the government data showing spending on the construction of factories dropped in July. I don't know what was reinforced.
They wanted to recreate the industry in America by putting tariffs on the highest it's ever been. And then the highest tariffs that ever been were reinforced by no buildings being built, no factories being built in America.
Not factories being built, factories producing things. This was reinforced by government data showing spending on construction of this is different, construction of factories. Okay, so you're right. Anyway, let me read the story. This was reinforced by government data showing spending on the construction factories dropped in July. It was down 6.7 from a year ago. 6.7 is a lot. As U.S. Appeals Court ruled Friday that most of Trump's tariffs were illegal, adding more uncertainty for business. So what do? We wait until the tariffs aren't there? I guarantee the people that are paying the tariffs are going to charge for the tariffs as long as they think they're getting threatened with the tariffs. They're going to make that money in advance. They're not going to wait for a tariff to show up. They're going to make that money now. I continue to see a broad economy generally and the manufacturing sector in particular is holding pattern until tariff-related uncertainty recedes, said Stephen Stanley, a chief U.S. economist at Santander U.S. Capital Markets. The ISM said its manufacturing PMI, man, I love this, edged up 48.7 last month from 48 in July. A PMI reading below 50 indicates contraction in manufacturing, which accounts for 10.2% of the economy. Economists polled by Reuters had forecast the PMI would rise to 49. Still don't know what that means. 7 industries, including textile mills, miscellaneous manufacturing, and primary metals, reported growth last month. Among the 10 industries reporting contraction were makers of paper products, machinery, electrical equipment, appliances, and companies, as well as computer and electronic products. Tariffs continue to dominate commentary from manufacturers. Some makers of transportation equipment said the conditions were worse than the 07-09 recession, adding that there's absolutely no activity. This is 100% attributable to the current tariff policy and the uncertainty it has created. Some viewed the conditions as consistent with stagflation. Stagflation means the economy has gone to shit. Usually when the economy's gone to shit and nobody's hiring, you get no inflation, but the opposite happens in stagflation. You get inflation and low employment, and basically money becomes worth less and you have less money.
Yeah.
So that's a bad situation.
It's stagnation. Nothing's happening. It's plateaued.
Stagflation, not stagnation. Some electrical equipment, appliances, and components producers complain that made in the USA has become even more difficult due to tariffs on many components. They said the administration wants manufacturing jobs in the U.S., but we are losing higher skilled and higher paying roles. Others reported that because of the lack of stability in trade and economics, capital expenditures, spending, and hiring are frozen. Manufacturers of computer electronic products said tariffs continue to wreak havoc on planning and scheduling activities, adding that plans to bring production back into the U.S. are impacted by higher material costs, making it difficult to justify the return. Food, beverage, and tobacco products manufacturers warned that everything made of organic sugar was about to get significantly more expensive because of a 50% tariff on imports from Brazil and the U.S. Department of Agriculture's elimination of specialty sugar quota.
Time to build sugar plantations on the in the U.S. there, buddy.
And just in case you're interested in fake money that isn't worth anything, stocks in Wall Street were trading lower as investors worried over the appeals court ruling on the legality of tariffs. Of course, the Wall Street is a gambling casino, and we keep acting like it's a harbinger of a great economy when it's not. It's just a harbinger of rich people taking their profits off the top, are reinvesting their stock buybacks that they got user tax dollars, right? They say, I got a tax refund. Let's buy more stock back and from our investors, and then drive the stock price up, and then buy more stock, and then drive it up, and then do it over and over again, and create fake wealth for ourselves and take it out of the business and watch everybody lose their job. That's basically what Wall Street does. Stocks on Wall Street were trading lower as investors worried over the appeals court ruling on legality of tariffs. The dollar advanced against a basket of currencies because the dollar being worth more means that inflation is not going away. The USM survey's forward-looking new orders on sub-indexed increased to 51.4. Don't know what that means still. Nonetheless, ISM Manufacturing Business Survey Committee Chair Susan Spence said that for every positive comment about new orders, there were 2.5 comments expressing concern about near-term demand, primarily driven by tariff costs and uncertainty. Yes, the uncertainty is the problem. If I got a tariff, I'm going to charge the tariff if you're threatening me with a tariff. If I'm an importer, you're threatening me with a tariff, I'm charging the tariff to my customer because I know I'm going to get nailed later. Or I fear getting nailed later, so I'm going to jack up my price at least a little to make up for this price I'm going to be paying later. So it's seen in prices almost immediately. As soon as you threaten tariffs, they raise their prices. They're going to wait for the tariff. They're going to make their money now.
But also, because they're threatening tariffs, right? The people you're exporting to are also threatening tariffs. So then everyone is paying tariffs on everything.
I'm an importer used to paying 10% tariff, right? I'm an importer. I've been paying this 10% tariff, still making money. Now you're making it 50. What am I going to do? I'm going to wait for you to make it 50? No, I'm going to raise my prices now. That's how, this is how capitalism works.
People can get used to the prices now before it happens.
Capitalists make their money on the margins. And the margins are what I bought it for and what I'm selling it for. That's the only time they make money. That's all they give a shit about. They don't give a shit about your job. They don't give a shit about your economy. They don't give a shit about your town. They don't give a shit about your city, your state, or your country. They care about their bottom line. What was my stock price worth Monday? What's it worth Friday? That's all they care about. End of story. You think they're caring about you? They don't. They're capitalists. They care about this. Dollars. Money. Cash. Dinero.
Yes, money.
With production declining, factory employment remains subdued, with ISM noting that layoffs and not filing open positions remain the main headcount management strategy. I love how headcounts are actually people, right? Think about it that way. The grim hiring picture for manufacturing
I hate everything.
Right. It's like, what? Well, it's called reduction, right? We reduce our people to list terms. It makes them not human anymore.
Objectify.
We have a negative employment outcome. No, you just fired 40 people. That's not a negative employment outcome. You just fired 40 people. The grim hiring picture of manufacturing suggests companies have little confidence that its sustained improvement in demand lies around the corner. Yeah, okay. Said Oliver Allen, senior U.S. economist at Pantheon Macroeconomics, who's probably making money hand over fist in the margins. That's where they make them. Sold it for 40, bought it for 25. That's all I care about. Which I'm doing for silver with silver right about now, by the way. Silver's really taken off. Buy silver, everybody. Get in. So I drive the price up for me. Suppliers took a bit longer to deliver factories last month. The ISM survey supplier deliveries index increased from 51.3 to 49.3 in July. A 50 indicates slower deliveries. Lengthening delivery times meant prices paid by factories for inputs remained elevated. The survey's prices paid measure slipped to a still high 63.7 or 64.8 in July. The high reading supports economists' contention that goods prices will accelerate in the second half of this year. Tariffs have been slow to pass through to higher inflation, with economists arguing that businesses are still selling merchandise accumulated before the import duties kicked in. Yeah, they're selling it, but they're not selling it at the previous price. They're probably not jacking it up for the tariff because they haven't had the tariff, as I keep saying. They haven't had the tariff yet, but they're getting ahead of the game. Like the gas prices at the pump. As soon as the price of oil goes up, they raise their price at the gas pump. As soon as the price goes down, they wait 3 days and then they lower the price. That's how that works. They make that money in those 3 days. Businesses also have been absorbing some of the tariff-related costs, but inventories were drawn down in the second quarter, and companies have warned tariffs are raising their costs, which economists expect will eventually pass on to consumers. Kind of just keep repeating the same thing in this story. Economists expect the AI spending spree to continue because AI, again, is useless. It has no practical application anymore.
I swear that bubble is going to pop sooner than you think.
Yeah, it's going to pop. The only thing driving this AI spending is Wall Street, and it's basically just a false bubble. It's not a real economy. It's nothing that's going to transfer into any kind of profits anytime soon. It's just something they're just using to get rid of people in their employment industry. Less employees. That's the word. That's what the AI bubble's about. Getting rid of humans. And where's your segue? Because I went on way too long.
What did you call it again? The word they were using for getting rid of workers or whatever. That's what they care about.
Negative workforce outcome.
Yeah, their negative workforce. That's all they care about. They want their workforce to be zero, as in they're paying nobody. So then, instead of making 2% of profits off of their, whatever they're doing, they can make 12. That's all they want. And by the way, if there are companies making their profits are 2%, or if anybody's profits is 10%, they are definitely exploiting something. Okay, workers, supply, something. And you should not trust those companies. Anyways, my alliteration is
tariffs don't work. Tariffs don't work if you import all your parts for your manufacturing. Yeah. They don't work. They're just going to make everything expensive for everybody that buys it and put your factory out of business. I'm sorry.
Well, the other thing, right, if I want to go on a little tangent, is they want to, first of all, they, put all of the people who know how to do things in internment camps. So there's nobody to teach any new American workers, right, how to do anything. I read this, I don't know how true the story is, but I saw on threads that they got rid of a Hyundai factory was iced.
Well,
it was
there's a lot of layers to that. They didn't get rid of it. They didn't get rid of it.
Korea, can you send over some Korean workers to teach us how to make Hyundai cars, Americans to make Hyundai cars? And it's like, why didn't you just keep those immigrants that already knew how to do it? Why did you just...
Maybe we're not talking about the same story, but there was a Hyundai factory busted with a lot of South Korean non-legal workers at a South Korean plant in the South of America, which only highlights the importance of unions, right? Why did they move to the South, you ask? Because they were a right-to-work state. Why did Hyundai put a factory in the South? Right-to-work state. They don't have to deal with the unions.
Yeah.
And why? What did they do when they didn't have to deal with the unions? They hired foreign workers. They hired South Korean workers and brought them into the country. South Korea is not an economically depressed area. These people could probably find high-paying jobs in South Korea too. But they brought them to America and displaced American workers because you idiots in the South don't want unions in your plant to protect American workers. Look at you idiots. Now you're arresting people.
Yeah, and
it's your problem. You created it. You fascists created this problem.
I've made you go into a tangent now. Into a rant.
I'm sorry. That's not even the story we're covering.
There's irony in the idea of displacing your own workers because hiring immigrants will be cheaper. But then when you're trying to do this anti-immigrant, send them back where they came from bullshit, and then you ask South Korea, hey, can you send back some people to teach Americans how to do that? And it's like, you just deported all of our workers from South Korea.
Oh, well, they're not going to deport them. They're probably not going to deport them. They're going to make, hopefully what they do is make freaking Hyundai pay a gigantic fine for hiring illegal workers. How about that? How about the oligarchs pay a penalty for a change instead of these people are just doing what they're told, right? Hey, you want a job in America? Hell yeah. Let's go.
Top Red Bear says, somebody in chat says, I'm a union carpenter, but the union won't even stand up for us because of Georgia. So he has to agree. Yeah, exactly what you're saying, right? Georgia just doesn't. The unions there have no power.
Right to work's one of those Orwellian terms. Right to work sounds great for the workers, don't it? I have a right to work, by golly. Hell, you know who else had a right to work? Slaves. They had a right to work. You have a right to work or a right to get whipped? Which one is it? I'll take the work.
Yeah. Okay. Coercion. We love coercion. My alliteration is tariffs tighten trade, triggering troublesome times of stagflation. I know that last word, but there's no T word for inflation or stagflation.
We'll accept. The judges.
We'll accept it.
Judges! Okay, judges sounded their air horn. All right, next story. This is about more